Which unknown video game doesn't get enough praise? There are lots of games that I played growing up that I feel as though barely anyone else played, and also when you're younger you kind of have those rose-tinted spectacles on where, yes, you think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus is the best video game of all time, because of course you are, because you're 8 and you love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I'm not here to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus, even though it's a great game, I stand by that. I'm going to talk about the Cybertron games by High Moon Studios, who have now since sadly been absorbed into the Call of Duty behemoth blob thing that Activision have created, along with the Beanox, the people who made the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time, and the one good amazing Spider-Man video game and the not so good amazing Spider-Man video game, but basically loads of, and also Raven Software, so many talented developers that kind of got bought up by Activision have now just been absorbed into this terrifying mass of just duty that they're all calling. But yes, High Moon, best known for making the Transformers Cybertron games, and it might be a bit of a stretch to say that they are unknown, but certainly in the context and discourse around comic book video games and superhero video games or whatever. And yes, Transformers was a comic before it was a TV show. Marvel actually created all the characters for Hasbro. Yeah, the Transformers War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, two of the best licensed video games you will ever play. They are so good, so tight, so authentic, and filled with love for the Transformers franchise. And it just, after year of, crappy movie tie-in, even though I did kind of like the Revenge of the Fallen multiplayer, yes, I am trash. The Cybertron games were a massive breath of fresh air, and I dearly miss them. They were so much great fun. The first one, they were both, I don't know how Transformers continuity works right now, that's a whole thing I can't unpack, but I do know that they were, at the time, official prequels to the Generation 1 TV show, and it shows how the Autobots and Decepticons, basically how they end up on Earth. And it was just so good. The gameplay was great, the multiplayer was fun and actually, challenging in a way. You had a co-op horde mode, and then the sequel introduced the Dinobots, and the Dinobots are the best. The Grimlock sections in that game are just fantastic, and they ended it on a cliffhanger. The third game, by all accounts, was meant to see them actually go on Earth this time, with High Moon, doing that. But then Transformers Revenge of the Fall? No, the one after that. The one with... Was it the third? Oh my god, I've completely forgot. There was another Transformers game that tied in with the Cybertron stuff, and it was one of the Bay movies, and they made it together, and it wasn't High Moon who made it. But anyway, basically, we went to get Transformers Cybertron 3, and then it never got made. And it's really sad, because the first two are brilliant, and you should definitely play them if you get the chance. The fact they haven't been remastered or re-released or whatever is crap, because they're great. Yeah, I must play for Transformers fans, because they're great. I love them. I feel really bad for the studios that Activision have destroyed. Bit of a bummer note to end on, but yeah, play the Cybertron games, they're great.
Okay, without a doubt, one of the most unknown, underrated games that absolutely deserves more love is Aliens vs. Predator. 2010, I think it came out, so it's a decade old now, and yet it is still very good. It's just a shame that, you can't really play it anymore on consoles, because the online suite for this title was honestly incredible back in the day. And I know, there were other Aliens vs. Predator games before that, but I never had a PC and I never played them, and this was my first foray into this franchise, and boy, did it not disappoint, because the idea of having this asymmetrical multiplayer experience when you were either a Marine or a Predator or an Alien, obviously, and you had to kind of go against each other, it just provided some of my favorite multiplayer thrills ever. Even though the game itself isn't the most polished thing in the world, it's not the most technically accomplished, package, the potential it had and the core mechanics themselves was so satisfying. There was one mode in particular where you start off, it's just your natural infected mode, but it's with aliens, which obviously, you add xenomorphs to anything and it becomes better. So the idea was you had a bunch of Marines, and every time an alien killed one of them, they would join the alien ranks. But the twist was, it was set in this shifting temple level where, if you've seen the movie Aliens versus Predator, the first one, the entire environment changes, and it meant that if you were on the wrong side of a wall, for instance, you could get separated from the rest of your men. And I have this one memory, this really distinct memory, where a bunch of us got away to the other side of the temple, and the wall was coming up, and there was a dude stuck behind it, and then suddenly you just saw all of the xenomorphs swarm him. It was the kind of moment that you would expect to see in kind of like a scripted Naughty Dog set piece or something, but it was happening in real time in multiplayer, and it was great. And it also helps that the campaign mode was good as well. You had 3 different campaigns of varying length and quality, but it was all fun, and it all kind of contributed to this overall, distinctly Aliens versus Predator game, and it was completely awesome at the time, and I'm kind of gutted that they probably won't make another one because I dug the hell out of it. And as 2 kind of honorable mentions before I close off this video, I've got to mention The Club, which was a game that was so good it gave me migraines when I was little. And what else do I want to shout out? The Mummy on PlayStation 1. An awesome game, believe it or not, and I absolutely loved that as a kid. So I didn't think I'd ever mention it in a video, but here I am.
Right, so for an unknown game, I harked back to the days of the PS2, which is when I just pick up anything, no matter the reviews or whether I heard it was good or not, and just kind of based my judgment on the front cover. So if it had a nice sword on it, or some elves and some orcs, or even a wizard riding a unicorn, I would give it a go. Now, the wizard riding a unicorn did not turn out so well, but many others did, like Armored Woman and Dragon turning out to be Drakon the Ancient's Gates, which is one of my favourite PS2 games, and the most underrated one that I do want to talk about, but I've spoken about too many times before. That was a great punch. The other one, which is the one I'm going to talk about today, I don't know how unknown it is in the grand scheme of things, but I haven't spoken about it a lot, and I don't see it spoken about kind of in circles anymore, so I'm going to shed some light on it and just enjoy it again. So if you know about it, then you can enjoy learning about it again, and it's Champions of Norath. Now, I picked this up based on this front cover, which I have over here. Like a Blue Peter announcement, this. The one I made earlier. So, here it is. Nice one with a sword. Young me went wild for that. Nice one with a sword. What more could you want from a game? Woman, sword, give it to me, chef's kiss. So, stuck that in, and found out that it's actually based on the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance engine, which I loved as well. And you are a champion of Norath, who is basically, you can pick your own race and class and do all the fun fantasy stuff, and you've got to go out and help wipe evil from the lands and help people kind of come back against an evil rising force that I don't talk too much about because there's a nice twist in the tale. It's a good story, has a few twists, really lays on thick the fantasy trappings, and it's just great fun. And it also comes with the added bonus, I'm getting out of breath because I'm excited, I'm like, oh. It also comes with the added bonus of being couch co-op, which is, what more could you want? What more could you want? You can actually play that one online because it is ahead of its time, but you can do couch co-op as well, where you will run around, hack and slash through dungeons, have a good time, have wholesome fantasy, family fun, and just enjoy yourself. I cannot recommend Champions of Norath enough. It's great fun, it doesn't get spoken about, and it still holds up today as a fun PS2 game to play. So if you want a little retro game to go through, to get invested in some story, to play alongside some interesting fantasy tropes, then go for it. It's a great time. It's a great time, and I recommend it a lot. So, Champions of Norath. Are you the champion that Norath needs? Yes, you are. Play Champions of Norath. Today, there's my sales pitch. It's good. I promise. It's good. It's underrated. Doesn't get enough love. It's good.
So if we're talking unknown games, then I'm going to go back into the PS2 and the PS1 archives, because I feel like back then I was just snapping up things left, right and centre to see what they were like. I was forever fascinated by just 3D and HD and whatever, and I wanted to play as much as possible. So I'm going to go with Mark of Cree. Now, I remember just being so ridiculously excited for this in the run-up to launch. Every single screenshot of it looked absolutely gorgeous. And I know that if you go back to it now, yes, it's very blocky, and it's not going to, maybe you're not going to blow people away now, but the art style for that was this sort of Disney adjacent approach where every character model was very much rounded off. It looked like early 2000s Disney animation, and that was only translated across into gameplay, where you had this really cool, unique combat system, which was kind of half stealth. You could go into encounters slowly and methodically pick off enemies one by one, or you could go full on in like a way that would sort of become something like the Batman Arkham Asylum approach, where you can fight multiple people in a row, or multiple people at once. Mark of Cree had this thing where you would like rotate the right analog stick to sort of send this beam of light around you, and whoever was inside that light would then be assigned a button, one of the face buttons, and that meant that you could then tap out different combos to take on like 2 or 3 guys at once. And they also changed based on, if you wanted to focus on one person, you would only send the beam of light at them, and then you could do different animations based on if it was 1v2, 1v3 or whatever. And I just love that whole idea. I get that it's a little bit clumsy, I guess, in the moment if you're trying to sort of juggle various amounts of enemies and you're faffing around with the left and the right stick and your face buttons and you've got things on the shoulder buttons. I hardly see anybody ever mention it, but whenever I say it on a video or I tweet something out about it, there's always a little tiny amount of people that sort of pop in and go, "Oh my god, Mark of Cree." And they did do a sequel, Mark of something else, I forget, Rise of Kasai, I think it might have been called. I didn't pick that one up, sadly, for as much as I loved the original. But I just think that, Mark of Cree just has this aura around it, this sort of, it's very playable. You can just dive in and you figure its systems out, and I always had an absolute blast with it. Thankfully, it's on PS4 if you want to give it a shot.
The one game that literally no one ever talks about is a game called Distance. Now, it's a action, racing, platforming, horror game. Yeah, horror. It's weird because it's the first racing horror game ever to exist, and oh my god, it just looks so cool, so atmospheric and so insane. Like, these clips that you're seeing now are just straight from gameplay, really, and all the environments just look insane and amazing, and there's like loads of stuff that react to the music, and the music itself, oh my god, it is brilliant. You seriously need to check it out. It's on PC, on Steam. It came out of early access in 2018, and it's also coming out on PS4 and PS5. Well, I hope PS5 soon. They haven't announced the launch date for it, but honestly, if you can, seriously check it out because it is so bloody cool.
So, a unknown video game that I feel doesn't get enough praise is Condemned Criminal Origins, and I don't know if it's just a game that people just haven't heard of, but as far as a horror game goes, it is brilliant. It's, apart from like Silent Hill, it's one of the first proper sort of horror games that I remember playing, and I had it on the Xbox. I remember having people come over and play it because I'd already played it like 2 or 3 times. It's so good, and there's so many of my friends that just couldn't get through it because it's really suspenseful. It's got some brilliant jump scares. The combat is fantastic. It's you never know what's lurking around the corner. And basically the whole point of Condemned Criminal Origins is you play as a detective called Ethan, and there's a serial killer basically, and you are trying to investigate these different murders and try to put together the clues and find out who the serial killer is. However, you then get framed for someone's murder, and you have to try and find out who has framed you and who is the serial killer. So there's lots of little different things going on, but there's just so many brilliant jump scares, and it's such a good way of scaring you because you are so focused on trying to look for clues and zooming in and gathering evidence that those are the perfect times for things to jump out at you. And then there's this one jump scare in Condemned Criminal Origins that always gets me, and it got me so good on the first run. And basically you come across this body in a locker, and he has no mouth, like his lips have been cut off. It's a very gory game, and basically you have this camera and it says zoom in and see if you can take a picture and we'll gather some evidence. And so while you're trying to zoom in and get this perfect, make sure it's perfectly in focus, the guy then gains consciousness and he's like, "Help me!" And it scared the crap out of me, and it's perfect. As far as horror games go, I think it's like a perfect horror game. It's got brilliant twists, a brilliant story, really good combat. It's just really unnerving and suspenseful, and it just doesn't get enough credit. So if you haven't played it, I highly recommend playing it. The second one's not great, but the first one is fantastic. For an Xbox 360 game, it is really, really good. So yeah, play it.